Welcome back, everybody, to episode 44 of Guillermo's Guide to Media Literacy. I'm Guillermo. I would quickly like to address today's sponsor, CVPN, a wonderful VPN made by and for those who can't afford something fancy. They offer free ad blockers in a wide range of countries, along with its anti-spyware algorithm to ensure your safety. Moving along, on today's episode, we're deviating from our previous topic of social media and moving on to something that gets talked about on these platforms. Specifically, my film and our question of the day asked by my wonderful audience. For those who have yet to watch the film, it is called Insane in the Snake Brain, which is a film about a man named Anthony who is talking to a seemingly rich individual about issues with healthcare. Overall, the film covers topics like the corruption of the healthcare and health insurance industry. Not to mention, the film contrasts the perspectives of both the rich and the poor on the scenario. That's enough spoilers for now, so let's just get right into it, shall we? How does your product use or challenge conventions, and how does it represent social groups or issues? This was sent and asked by dvpins_09, so shout out to him. Well, before we jump the gun, let's get into the first part. I would like to cover specifically what genres we even had in the film for those who didn't feel like paying for the tickets. Our main two genres were drama and psychological thriller, and we followed them quite nicely if you ask me, but I'm not here to market the movie, so on to the actual answer. The first time you can get an idea of what this movie will be like would be right as the credits roll, with that second logo of the snake and the apple, which places the image of the Garden of Eden story in the viewer's brain, you know? The whole lying snake scenario, sneaking around knowledge to deceive people. I bet Stuart Hall would love that representation, but I'll talk about him next episode. Hint, hint, representation is a reconstruction of reality. They can inform reality, and they are created by media language. That is a quote by Stuart Hall. Anyway, even the credits themselves show this is going to be a very real film, and not something too fictional in some faraway land. However, I would like to move on to the actual film, as with just the darker lighting behind my wonderful colleague Anthony Garcia, with a serious expression that highlights the mood and the film. Great acting on his part, by the way. You guys should check out his podcast, Anthony's Awesome Podcast. It's a bit on the nose, trust me, I know. Well, he talks about the same things as I do, but very differently. It's hard to explain, so just check it out yourself. His acting throughout the film, along with mine, followed pretty linearly with what you'd expect from a movie like this. Dark lighting and nearly over dramatic dialogue, similar to those in telenovelas, but not that satirical, really. Back to what I was saying about the lighting, overall it added a great ambiance to the movie. That was really just a chef's kiss. That isn't all we did, however. Like I said earlier, the dialogue definitely added to the mood, as I even threatened death to Anthony and his family. Even appealing to the whole men must protect their family stereotype, something my OG viewers would know Judith Butler is all about, with the whole genders or performance theory she has. It isn't a feature most would notice, but how about I move on to something else right after this short break? Alright, everybody, I am back and raring to go. Like I said, I'm going to be moving on to a few more conventions we followed and get going on some things we thwarted. Well, first off, I want to talk about some of the psychological thriller conventions, which is honestly my favorite genre of the film, but Anthony said it was lame. Can't believe this imbecile. Well, the main way we followed psychological thriller was more so at the end of the film, where I'm revealed to be something other than human. Basically, the way the film went was that I shook Anthony's hand after tricking him into joining me in the corrupted healthcare business. But once I do, we see a close up of his hand, a snake bite. Just two dots because we aren't professional makeup artists, but hey, what works, works. Now, not only does this show that I'm evil, but it even portrays the entirety of healthcare and the snakes that represent it as more than just a logo, but a symbol of deceit and evil. Like I said before, you could also interpret this as me being otherworldly or not quite human. As great as all of this is, we didn't just come up with it on the fly. No, no, no. We used the Joker movie as a huge inspiration for the film as a whole, really. For example, although obvious, his makeup was something we really took into consideration, as he uses the face paint as a mask to hide who he truly is. This fake outward appearance is what we were going for when it came to my character. Now, we didn't just follow the conventions of psychological thriller to a T, we definitely deviated a bit. Now, usually in psychological thriller, there's a whole lot of suspense. However, when it came to this film, the dialogue does slightly escalate, but I would say it stays more or less calm throughout the movie. All right, I think that's just about enough psychological thriller conventions. So let's move on to drama. All right. So our inspo was Hunger Games, since me and my teammates really enjoyed the climactic dialogue and scenes, even in calmer scenarios, like when they show off their skills, but manage to keep the audience engaged. I also personally loved the movies, and our director loves the books, so making the film came quite naturally. Like I said before with the dialogue, we had made sure that the words felt like there was weight behind them in the acting, as it would feel pretty empty without it. We pretty much automatically agreed on focusing on a heavier dialogue, and overall, I think it added a lot. Obviously, acting and dialogue isn't everything in the film, but also what happens in general, which is exactly why we included an easy to follow conversation, but one that could effectively provide a problem that is occurring in this case. It's Anthony's inability to pay for health insurance and my attempts to hire or make a deal. Obviously, it isn't some astoundingly unique plot, but it was fun to make and serves its purpose swimmingly. Just like we did with psychological thrillers, we deviate from the drama genre. Usually in drama movies, they stick to a very linear story with no big surprise or turns at the last minute. However, that is exactly what happens at the very end with the snake by adding a fun element to the story. All right, to end off the podcast, I would just like to go over some representations we had throughout the film. Before getting on to our film, however, I would like to note how the Hunger Games played a role in our representations. We didn't exaggerate the difference between the lower class to average citizens and people of higher wealth, but we did use it as inspiration. If you watched the film, which you totally should by the way, you would see the striking difference between Anthony's casual, clearly old shirt compared to my nice, smooth, and new dress shirt, which make me look quite dashing. But clothes aren't where our representation ends. We also decided to reflect their social classes through their personality as best as we could. As the viewer can tell pretty obviously from the beginning, Anthony's talking from a position of vulnerability, almost desperation, as the conversation goes on. However, this does not mean he doesn't try standing up for his own personal beliefs, although briefly. As for my character, we figured the one coming from the position of strength would be much more confident. I didn't end up getting close to arrogant, which our director took as a good feature to keep within the film. Uh, well, this was my 44th episode. Tune next time and have a wonderful day. Make sure to follow and subscribe so you can get more of these episodes and even get notified. Bye.